Michelle, why don't we do it like this? Let's present a little bit of yourself, talk about yourself so that people can know who you are, that are seeing you for the first time.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I was a teacher for 30 years, teaching middle school, high school, community college. And for some people who don't understand the middle school, high school terms, basically kids starting from the age of 10 all the way through the university level. And I was teaching French and Spanish and decided in the last couple of years that there was more work to do. And especially in the break of this pandemic that's been international, global, a lot of families were caught off guard. And students were really struggling. There were students who didn't get to have their classic high school graduation. There were students who didn't get to, see their friends anymore. This is a time that's very unprecedented, especially in the United States, as far as the isolation. And so I ended up going and getting a coach myself and becoming an academic life coach as well as a parenting coach, because it's not always the kid that's the problem. So I share that honestly and openly because I'm also a mother who raised 5 children. I had 2 bonus children from my first marriage. I had 3 birth children. And as a teacher for 30 years, I knew the perspective. And also having, of course, been a student, gotten my master's degree, I know the perspective of being a student, also with learning difficulties, being a mother, and being a teacher. And so I felt that I feel truly now today, I am so grounded and centered in a profession that not only helps kids, helps parents, but helps families develop and create compassionate communication so they can play and engage and enjoy each other again. And I love it. I get goosebumps just sharing about it.
You are really all rounded about it. Okay, you are a mother, you are a teacher, you have been a teacher for years, and so you got a couple of children that are giving you the gist, as it were. No? So you basically have it all around.
Absolutely.
That is interesting. So you are the kind of a person who should really be talking who will be talking about education with us. So you're that kind of person.
Absolutely. And I want to say that also, just for people listening, I'm also trilingual. So I speak English, Spanish, and French. And I work with families, and I can work with families with all those languages. So I try to give myself that, to provide more access to more families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, how did you first know that this was going to be a career you wanted to pour yourself in? Like, how did you know this was going to be something that will work for you? Let's start from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, I was not someone who loved school when I was in middle school and high school. And so what propelled me into teaching was to make that experience more enjoyable for kids. And when I realized that it was time for me to move out of the teaching career and into coaching, again, it's about being able to give my gifts and my talents. Of course, I charge myself away for free anymore. But it was about really identifying what are my strengths, and what my strengths are is really supporting families in my podcast, it's called Coexistence, Joy, Pain, and Truth. And there's a lot of joy and pain in parenting. And there's a lot of joy and pain in being a student. And so what I found was if I can shed this light and normalize this for families, it feels so good to me. And so my choice to go into this particular direction was really just saying, okay, now I can impact this this challenge in a really positive way at a time.
Mm-hmm. When you were responding just now, you made mention of the fact that you don't want to give yourself away anymore. That, of course, opened up a different argument that is very interesting, which means that sometimes what we do, we don't know that there is value for it, no? So we just give it away like that. Well, it can become a business, in the sense that if what you do have a value, then you have the right to charge for it. Of course, it is right, though. So tell me about the business part of this job that you do.
The business parts, as far as what I offer or how I develop it.
Yeah, how you develop it, how you of course set up the program.
Yeah. So what I decided was, first of all, in the United States, the academic calendar is generally from August or September until June. So I decided, well, I can have an introductory package that families can say, yeah, this may work, this may not work. But then I generally have a semester, I set up a semester package and I set up a year-long package. Most of my students start off with the year-long package because we meet the first. So let me just say this, in order to set up this business and in order to set up relationships with the children, I have to meet with the parents first. So I always meet with the parents first. We talk about what I offer, how I offer it, what it costs. And then if they're on board with that, I will then meet the student. I will never, it's almost like when you think about um, family relations. Let's say there's somebody and a man is dating a new woman. He does not introduce her to his children until after they've decided they're going to be committed for a long time. That way you don't like set the children up for sadness or that, oh, this isn't going to work out. I mean, of course you can never tell. But so the packages I set up basically surround the academic school year. This is for my students, but I also have a 12-month program for parents, which is actually a full year because summer can be really challenging for parents. So I don't know if I answered your question exactly. So maybe tell me again if there's something more that I left out.
No. You didn't leave anything out. I was just trying to understand the business part of it, but I think you give us some insight of what is really needed there. But now I'm going to drag you a little bit on that line, no? In that
Yeah.
you are a parent, you are a mother, so you understand when you say it is challenging, and you basically do know what you are talking about. So tell me, what do you actually mean by being challenging in terms of taking care of children and in the line of the business that you are into?
Yeah, so what I do a lot with children and also with their parents is I help them understand the phases of development. So we have the frontal lobe, and our students, this doesn't really mature and really solidify until about the age 25. And yet, we all expect our kids to be organized, to be able to manage their time, to be able to self regulate and not get upset and reactionary, which ironically, parents don't always do so well themselves. so so I help the kids get organized. I help the kids, time plan their time. I help the kids identify where on the website do they need to find this or where in their textbook, how to study. We've grown up being told by our parents, clean your room. But does anybody actually walk in and show us exactly how to clean our room? It's the same thing with studying. How do we study? Well, okay, I guess I'm supposed to just read the book 3 times and then I'll know the material. It doesn't work that way. The same thing goes with parents. Parents don't know, they weren't necessarily shown how to communicate compassionately, to practice active listening, to take time to play and recognize their kids. But instead, maybe some families grow up with a lot of criticism and analytical feedback all the time. And so it's about developing, a compassionate connection between families, especially when everyone's stressed out. So instead of letting that escalation happen of the stress, I work with parents and then also their children separately. I don't actually work with families together. I occasionally I will have a session, but I work with them separately to identify what is your part in this miscommunication or what is your part in this lack of communication. What are your expectations? And I help them define success for themselves as a parent, for the student as an academic journey, and as a family. What does success look like?
All right, Misha. Now I have a kind of a curiosity. Um, is it possible that when you were growing up, there was a kind of incident that probably make you understand that you needed to take this line of course in when you grew up? I don't know. Tell me, when you were growing up as a child, how was the education for you with your parents and maybe also the school that you went to? Let's share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Way to dive deep. So yes, I was not a fan of school. I felt in elementary school, which is the age 5 to not 10, I was very strong. I was a leader. I was even asked by my teachers to help tutor other students. But when I got into the older grades, I felt very um, inadequate. There's a lot of background noise. I don't know if it's mine or yours, but um, I felt very inadequate and my self-esteem got lower and lower and lower. In fact, I wasn't going to go to college. I was very fortunate that my parents were extremely supportive.
Now, it's like the line is a little bit disturbed. Can you hear me there? Hello?
They're oh,
it was it
yes,
was
can you hear
sis-
me now?
it was a little bit, but anyway, I can hear you now. Yeah, please go.
Okay. All right. So my parents were very generous as far as the ways they communicated with me about who I was as a person. They really, truly, for the most part, accepted me. So it wasn't that my parent, I mean, they had their own reactionary experiences where they would get upset. But as a student, I definitely felt extremely inadequate. And it took up until my adult years to feel smart, to feel intelligent. My father used to always tell me that I was extremely resourceful, that I would be okay no matter what I did. And he was right. But for some reason, it didn't sink in that I had these tools. And so, a lot of what I do with these kids and these parents is to help them identify tools they already have or the intelligence they have required to access their tools. But yeah, absolutely. If you think about, when you go dive deep and you say, Misha, what is it about your childhood that sparked this interest in you? I feel like if I really had my way, Obehi, I would create a whole new academic system. Like I wish I could create a new school system, change the way things are. I don't think kids who are between the ages of 10 and 14 should even be in a school system. I think they should be volunteering. I think they should be out there learning how different generations do things. There's just, yeah, there's something wrong with our school system internationally, as far as I'm
I
concerned.
think I'm so interested in knowing about that. I'm so interested in knowing about that because there have been a lot of complaints, all over the places, about the educational system. Especially maybe when you are looking at the effect of COVID-19 and the breakdown of the system as it were. Of course, this is the time. Even before the people have been complaining about how to overhaul the educational system because it have been based on the system that is already old as it were, no? So you as a teacher,
Right.
also speaking about that, and I think I wanted to say something more about that. When you say you will change the educational system, can you please explain better? What do you actually mean by that?
Yes, and I'm just if anybody has any funding to help me do that, no, I'm just kidding. Yes, so I believe that, well, I don't know as much about the education system in other countries, but I mean, I know about some, but in the United States, I really truly believe that multiple languages should be introduced at a young age. I feel cultural awareness and languages, students should be able to learn 2 to 3 other languages as they're growing up. That's the first thing. I think music should always be included, the arts. Then, when a student gets to around 10 or 11 years old, I feel opportunities should be provided for them to actually be involved in community service and that they should be exploring ways to impact the world in a positive way. Because what I see in the United States, anyways, is that a lot of students are directed towards becoming that famous rich person and instead of the next Gandhi or Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King, like there is this selfishness of how do I survive, the survival of the fittest. So I feel like when community service, and this is what happened when I was a teacher, I would present ideas to my students for community service. And the more community service they did, the more altruistic they became, the more loving and compassionate they became. Not that any of these kids were bad or mean or terrible people, but they had a better perspective on what it meant to be a community. And I feel like when people know what it's like to be a community, families can be closer together and education can be more easily retained. What they have to learn, there's more meaning behind it. When students are taking things like geometry and algebra and biology, and they really don't know how it relates to the rest of the world, then learning isn't as desirable. It's just another thing, another chore that they have to do. But when you give them an opportunity from, say, like I said, like the age 10 to 14 or 15, to be out in the rivers, to be out in community with senior citizens, then they can start to see why these other subjects are so important. So yeah, that's my passion.
That's great. That's
Yet
great.
can't do anything about it yet. So I'm starting with the family.
No. It's right. It's right. It's good to hear your opinion and also how you form your opinion about that. Now, you help students from the age of 10 to 20 to do their academic functioning. Now, how do you do that?
Yeah, so I'm actually, so I'm gonna correct that a little bit. I do both. I help them with their executive functioning, which is basically adulting, learning how to be an adult early. And then I also help them with life. And so the things that I do, one, I want to credit my mentor, Gretchen Wegner, who created the anti-boring approach to powerful studying. And this is basically the how to study in a different way, like really developing a system that incorporates variety and repetition, and then also putting systems in place that helps the students become more successful more quickly. But I also help them with life. And what that means is if they have a question about an assignment, a lot of students don't want to talk to their teachers. So I teach them how to compose an email to the teacher, how to walk up and we role play conversations with their teacher. For example, I don't understand this assignment and I know that it's due in 3 days. Can you help me for 5 minutes? Teaching them how to articulate their needs and desires. I also work with them to do conflict resolution with their parents, with their siblings, with other teachers, with other kids at school. I also teach them to advocate for themselves when something doesn't feel right. Maybe they turned in an assignment and the teacher can't find it. Instead of just going, oh, okay, or blowing up, we learn ways, I teach them ways to really communicate effectively. And also balancing life. One of my students just recently, we're almost at we're at the end of the school year and they're applying for summer jobs. So we actually went through the job application, helped identify, okay, if you're going to fill out 4 applications, you need to have this information in one spot so you can go back and retrieve it for each application. So you're not sitting there thinking every time you have an application, what do I need to put in there? And then the other thing we did was we role played job interviews. Like people say, yeah, go to your job interview. But then you get to a job interview and you're terrified because there are 5 people sitting in front of you or one, and you have to kind of sell yourself and you have to ask questions that, because you're not also, oops, there's a lot of noise. Hold on one second. Okay. So, so basically, when a student shows up to a job interview, they've never been through that before. So what do? And all of this is about academics and life, right? So really helping them identify what is going to be needed. And when you go for a job, yeah, we want you to have a job, but we also want you to interview them. How do you get the job that's right for you? And they say in American slang, or terms, beggars can't be choosers. I don't want all kids to feel like they're beggars. I want them to stand in their confidence and be able to say to a boss or a potential boss, I'm an educated student. I'm a junior in high school. I've done really well in my classes. And this class I don't do so well. These are my weaknesses. These are my strengths. And sir or ma'am, what are your company's weaknesses and strengths? And why would you think I would enjoy working here? And it's really just, being able to have the dialogue and take the elephant out of the room and feel like I'm at your mercy. Please give me a job, And so it's the same thing with the education. I want my students to know that they're earning a grade. The teacher's not giving them a grade. So what is the work they have to put in to earn that grade? So I went off on a tangent, but anyways, there you are.
No. It's great. No, I'm trying to just make a little bit of reflection about it. Yeah. That it's not about a gift. It's not because somebody is giving you something for free. You really earn it. You work for it, no? So you deserve it. That is the deserving in it, So that is really
Absolutely.
yeah. That is really important. So now, what I'm trying to understand here is how important is it? Because the title of this podcast is how to follow your children through in the educational in the academic career. So now the question actually I'm putting into you: how important is it for parents to follow their children through in their educational pursuit, their educational career?
It's very important. It's the smallest thing. So maybe a student is the first time to ever graduate high school in their family or even go to college. And a way a parent can support their student is just to ask questions. What did you learn today? Was there something that was interesting in science class? Is there something you can teach me from your history class? So to make it a more engaging experience as opposed to what grade did you get on your test today? Because it's not about grades. It's really about learning and the hunger for learning. And when we focus so much on did you get your homework done and what are your grades, then the identity is really around not learning, but how good was I? Good child, good student, bad student, good employee, bad employee. And so I really feel that it's incredibly important. Parents don't have to know the subjects well or have to, teach. Like I'll give you an example. When I was teaching French or Spanish, I would ask my parents at the back to school night event, how many of you speak Spanish or French? And they would raise their hands and say, great. Speak the language with your students, but don't correct your students. I'll do that. I see your students every day. I will correct them. You just engage with them and get excited with them when they say something correct or when they use that language and they're connecting and engaging instead of correcting them, because then that's more criticism and analyzing. And that goes back to what grade are you getting? Right. And so the importance of a family to be involved with each other is to develop that question asking. That's a social skill, right? Instead of saying, what grade did you get? Yeah, that's a question. But how deep does that go? Right. So I really feel it's important for parents to take interest in their kid. And if their kid says, I don't know, I'm unsure, or they just kind of put their things in their ears and listen to their music, to just know that the more you do it, the more consistent you are, the more continuity you have with engaging your child in conversation, the more they'll come around.
The more they will come around. All right. Now, you see, like I said before, you are actually in a very good position to talk about this issue, no? In that you work with parents, you work with students, you have been a teacher, you're a mother, so you are basically all round about it. So now tell us, when
Whew, I'm so glad. I needed that validation.
no, no, not really that. No. Actually, what I'm going here is when parents come to you, what kind of preoccupation do they have? In that okay, I understand that sometimes there is this worry, because sometimes there is this generational misunderstanding, the dichotomy. You don't understand what the children are feeling or what they are thinking, because maybe they are slang, the language they are using is even different from the one that they are using. So you sort of get cut off. You don't understand it anymore, so you need help now. So you have to meet somebody like you who know both sides. So what kind of preoccupation do they have when they come to you? I mean, the parent, because now you teach parents how to relate with children, and also the children how to relate with parents. So break this down for us.
Absolutely. So it's interesting. A lot of parents come to me because their students' grades are suffering. They are not they're not communicating. The student is isolating, or they have bad grades, or they've got a lot of missing assignments, and they're very concerned about their students' academic success. And so we talk about, well, what are the concerns? And then I ask the parent, what are your expectations? And we try to hone in on one or two reasonable expectations. So if a student is currently failing all their classes, a reasonable expectation would not be that they get all A's by the end of the school year. A reasonable expectation would be that they find interest in one of their subjects. And it's baby steps. So in the beginning, parents are coming to me because there's something, quote unquote, wrong with what's going on in their child's life. What happens, however, is that the more I talk with the parents, and I know this can scare some parents, so please don't go running away, folks, just listen. What can happen is we start to identify ways in which the parents need support in communicating and engaging with kids. A lot of parents are what the term is helicopter parents. They hover, they restrict, they have discipline, and they are critical. And so what happens is there's this disconnect because the kids are typically starting to get to that place of wanting some independence, and the parents are hovering so much that the kid feels like they are not trusted and that they don't have everything it takes. And then they feel reliant upon the parent. And so, what I work with them to do is to separate that reliance, to create an interdependence as opposed to codependence or dependence, where the kids can start to develop confidence and trust in themselves. The parents can start to identify, oh, they're doing this. I don't have to be there every. And it starts to become more comfortable, and then they can start engage and enjoy their relationship.
I've seen that sign before. I've seen it somewhere.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. But I think that a lot of people don't realize when you take two pieces that are broken, and people are really struggling, that it takes work to pull it back together. And sometimes it's a little wobbly. Sometimes it really fits just right, but it does take a lot of work. I don't think there is any family that has an absence of complete love, but sometimes we don't do it in the way that everyone feels loved. And so the deepest part of the work that I do is around healthy communication, healthy listening, healthy speaking, and really identifying reasonable goals and expectations.
Thank you for that. I can feel that. That is really very interesting. Now, I'm trying to look at the Western world, particularly where we live in. Okay, I live in Italy, you live in the US. Of course, we're in this hemisphere here. Now, what I'm trying to understand is that the fact that a lot of parents are sort of under stress, as it were, if we want to use the word like that, is something that is almost common across the board. But is it something that have always been like this from your own study, from your own understanding, or is it something that is a characteristic of the common time that we are living in?
Oh, well, I think that stress has been here forever. Yeah, and I think that what we have is different kinds of stress, right? I mean, so you can have stress being a single parent. You can have stress as a married family with 5 children or 10 children. You can have stress because you have 2 parents, but you have 1 job. You can have stress because you have a child who has a learning disability or a physical disability. So it's just stress is always there, and there's also good stress, I will say. So you really have to be loving and compassionate towards oneself, because we're always going to have stress. There's always going to be a storm, but it's how you walk through the storm. You can't avoid storms, they happen. And so, it's kind of like I mentioned earlier, the elephant in the room. The more we talk about things, and as you know, Obehi, in this pandemic, mental health conversations have become more normalized. People are suffering, people are struggling, people are grieving. And so the first place to help this kind of dissolve is in the family. If we can talk about those elephants in the room, instead of my son saying, Mom, I'm hungry, and I say, you can't be hungry, you just ate 2 hours ago. I say, oh, I hear that you're hungry. What would you like to do about that? I don't know. I don't really feel like eating anything. I just thought I'd tell you I'm hungry. Oh, okay. Thanks for sharing that with me. Cool. Right? So I just took a situation that could have very easily made my child feel completely dismissed. There was no gain for me in doing that. And so the gain was to shift it and say, you're hungry. Okay. When was the last time you ate? What did you eat? What would you like to do about it? And explore with curiosity, right? Instead of judgment. And so the stress is always going to be there. It is always going to be there. But it's how we decide to respond instead of react to the stress. And people need coaches for that. I'm just saying. We can't all do it by ourselves. We were not put on this planet, in whatever way you believe we came here, to do this alone. That's famous words. There you go.
That's interesting also. It's very interesting, It tells us why we need each other. And of course, we really do need each other. That is why we are here. All right. Now, talking of personal experiences, because of course, if you have this boldness to be able to really stand out those issues, which of course you are really taking the way they really should be taken on, that sometimes we need more than just what we already know to be able to face some of this issue. That we need coaches, we need people to help you navigate even in your personal life. Sometimes, funny it might sound, but it is true. So it means that you have matured your level of understanding, and I want to believe also that you have your kind of personal experience that you tap into to help you navigate this journey. So the question really there is, what kind of personal experiences do you tap into to be able to help other people to navigate also their own life?
Yes, I have a lot of personal experience. I've had my own adversities. I've had my own challenges. And I think that as a mother, I'll start there actually. I can remember very clearly a time in my raising of my children where I had my 3 boys at the dining room table, and I have raised 5 children, but once I got divorced, I was raising the 3 boys on my own pretty much. And we were at the table. Something had happened. I can't remember the experience of what happened, but I was not happy with them. And I was starting to do a little lecture to let them know this was not okay. And something I said, I messed up the word, and one of my sons started laughing, and he made fun of the word that I said. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could have gotten angry that he was taking a serious moment and being playful about it, or not taking me seriously, or I could acknowledge, yeah, that sounded really funny. And fortunately, that little pause gave me the opportunity to laugh with him. The energy changed significantly. And then I was able to share from my heart rather than from my disciplinarian, authoritarian mother place of what was wrong with the situation, why it didn't feel good. And the kids and I really bonded. My 3 boys and I looked at each other like, wow, that couldn't have happened in any better way. And so that experience alone helped me realize that this pause is so critical. But I had help. I had people helping me in my life. I had a coach who was reminding me that I needed to pause. I needed to breathe. My mom also taught me that one. And that not everything needed to be stated out of urgency. So I learned as I was parenting that, and my dad had a famous phrase that he used to use with me. He's like, you really are right. And I said, oh, thank you, Dad. He's like, but not everybody needs to know it. And that's a harsh statement, right? And at the same time, as I'm raising my children, the more I'm right, the less they feel wrong. And so to give them the opportunity to feel what they feel and know what they know without me correcting them or saying they should try it this way, it's giving them the opportunity to grow and develop. So I have personal experience there, watching myself being given that opportunity and then times when I wasn't, and also being able to help my students. I've had a lot of students who would come into my classroom after being in another classroom feeling very frustrated and dismissed. I'm trying to think then so that those are some personal experiences. I would also say that I wasn't the most organized student until I got to college. And so I wished I'd had someone helping me along the way, because I spent a lot of hours doing homework, studying, and what that meant to me at the time was reading things over and over and over again and falling asleep multiple times because I didn't understand it or frustrated. I literally would crawl underneath the dining room table and fall asleep on the floor because school felt so hard. And so I think it's really important for me to relay these kinds of stories to families. I have several students who don't feel they're intelligent. I know what that feels like. It's not that I'm not intelligent, but it took a long time to feel intelligent. Even today, something will happen, and there's this whole notion of compare and despair, right? Somebody does something really well, and I think, I could never do that. Yeah, no, I'm not intelligent. And all of a sudden, I classify myself in this not intelligent about anything. And it's very catastrophic, right? And dramatic. But that's what our kids are going through. And they don't have the tools to even it out, to level it out and say, oh, you know what? There's always going to be somebody better, always going to be somebody better in almost everything we do. And yet, I also am really strong, resilient, intelligent, and I get to give myself credit for that instead of taking it away because I'm comparing myself to others.
Those personal experiences are really very powerful, and because that is what help people to connect even better. So this podcast, of course, we try to lay emphasis more on that we're trying to connect more with people, that the brand, because people need to connect with people, and this is really powerful. This is one of the reasons, you see, because now people can really read you and they can understand more what you're talking about. Now I'm trying to see when parents come to you, because you teach parents also, like I was saying before, on how to better have interpersonal rapport with their children, which is something that is not, it doesn't come natural in some cases, no. Except of course, maybe you grow up with your parent, and now you are beginning to have your first issues, and then of course it becomes easier for you. But like the demographic that we concentrate on, which is immigrant, for example, you don't live with your parent, no. Your parents are living hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, and so they don't really know what is going on. You are living alone, you are having your first issue. It becomes very easy. Okay, having your first, you're having your first children. It's not very easy for you to know how to navigate through, even though you might be calling your parents. Sometimes it's not even. Sometimes you don't really have this strong rapport with your parents. What if you don't even have parents?
Right.
If you so. Uh, so when they come to you like this, what happened when you share these personal experiences with them, or how to go with their parent, or how to go with their children? Because it takes some time to be able to mature also, and then be able to have that personal rapport with your children. Because it's not because they are bad parents, it's because they just don't have the experience. So how do you help them in those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that let me take a step back for a moment. I had an experience. So I raised 5 children, 2 bonus children and 3 birth children. And my bonus daughter and I don't have a relationship with each other today. I love her dearly. I'm grateful that she's happy and healthy and loved. And I wasn't the best mom for her when I was raising her. I made my mistakes. And maybe there'll be a day where I have the opportunity to have a relationship with her again. But that sometimes we just have to let go and know that it does take time. And some people are not ready, and some people are ready sooner than others. And so the more we work on ourselves, the better we will be in community and in life. And we can't always fix that relationship with the person we want to fix it with. But what we do, and like your title, Business and Self Improvement, if we work on self improvement, and we show up in the world in a new way that is compassionate and endearing and supportive of ourselves and others, that alone is a huge apology to the way we lived before. Whether or not we heal a relationship in the past, we can start to really live with relationships today in the way that is the most authentic and healthy. So some families will come and say, I've got this terrible relationship. We don't even talk to each other. My son goes to his room. And there's more information. So we get more information. Now, I'm not a therapist. I will not claim to be a therapist. I'm more of a family consultant, strategist, coach, right? And so I help parents identify, in what ways are they communicating? What can change? And again, like you said, it's not that they're bad parents. Maybe they just never got shown how to do things. And you know what? They may know how to do it with one child, but not with another two. There are lots of books out there, but it's about really exploring and doing what you were saying, that self-improvement. And what I say from that self-improvement is self-care. So I guide parents to do self-care without guilt or shame. When you take it, for a lot of people who've gone on an airplane, you hear them talk about put on your oxygen mask first before helping your child or somebody else who acts like a child. But anyways, that was a joke that I heard on the plane yesterday. But the reality is, when you take time for yourself to improve yourself, to put energy in your healing, that alone is putting the oxygen mask on someone else, because they feel that change and that shift in you. They can really feel that you are shifting to a response as opposed to reaction to them and to life. So it's critical. And so I love empowering parents to really identify in what ways can they first take care of themselves before they try to dive in and save their child, whether it be because of academics or because of depression or because of anxiety, but that they really have to model that self-love and self-care. And so I give them tools and strategies, and we role play on ways that they can do that.
That's absolutely wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. It means that, okay, that the parent, even though they might not have the experience before, of course, by following through some of the advice that you give them, of course, then they can begin to better manage the situation that they have at hand. Now, in all this, where do you get your own personal satisfaction in the work that you do? Because I see you've been doing it for a long time. There is a lot of passion in your face as you're explaining, which means that you really are passionate about it. But what is your own personal satisfaction? Because that also is important. Share with us.
I love those aha moments when I see a student, or I got goosebumps again. When I see a student or a parent sit there and really just realize, oh, wow, yeah, I want to do that. I want to have that. And oh, I'm doing that. I mean, it's so beautiful when I watch a student progress after 8 weeks of working on a certain tool, and I ask, okay, now we're going to do this, and they say, oh, I just did it. Oh, wonderful! You did it all on your own. Yeah, I got this. Oh, I love that. And then also when a parent sends me a text. So I let them have my business cell phone, and they can text me 24/7. I don't answer 24/7, but they can text me 24/7. And so I'll get a text from a parent saying, my son told me today that he really loved the walk we took together. Thank you for the suggestion. So it's just these moments of clarity and deep love and spaciousness that they're providing for each other. That just, yeah, it makes me feel really warm, and yeah, I just feel really good.
That is great. That's powerful. All right. Now, we are getting towards the end of the podcast. Usually at this period, we give our guests a time to self-promote themselves. Because we know that how time is, you are busy. If you spend your time here coming to educate the people, and we believe that it is right that you also use the moment to sort of connect with the people. And perhaps there is somebody who is interested in what you are offering or how to better connect with you as it were. So use these few seconds to connect with our audience. What do you have that you want to offer? How do you want them to reach you? Where are you and all that? Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it's been really wonderful meeting you and talking with you, Obehi. I really, it's been so comfortable. And that's how I want my parents and my students to feel as well. So I thank you for this opportunity. So you can go to my website, which is just HTTP, I don't know how to say it, https:// www.mishasafran.com. But I would really recommend I give my time to offer a 45-minute consultation to see if I would be a fit for you as a parent or for your student or both. And it's an opportunity also, if we decide that it's not a working relationship for the future, you will still leave my consultation with at least one takeaway. I don't like people to leave without something they can do, an action item or an action step or a self-care commitment for the following week to kind of pursue and explore. So I really would love to invite you to set up an appointment with me, and we can discuss, is your student needing some immediate help? I have a 6-week program this summer starting July 19th. And it is basically going to be walking students through their last school year. They can reflect on their school year, and then taking them through the anti-boring approach, again, created by Gretchen Wegner, to help them understand their brain, how it works, and in what ways can they change the way they've been doing school. So I have that. And then in August, I have a 12-month parenting program. And it's actually a parenting program that is just for parents. You can be a single parent, you can be a married parent, you can be a domestic partner parent. You can come alone, you can come with your partner or husband or wife or et cetera. But basically, it's a full year support system and group where I'll be educating you on certain things, we'll be strategizing, and we'll be practicing. So whichever interests you, I just really highly encourage that you sign up for a complimentary consultation, because that's where we'll get to know each other and decide what is something I can work on with you right now. And if you want to continue the relationship, what is involved in doing so. And I can give the link to Obehi to put that in there for the consultation.
All right, fantastic. That is important. That is important. So they can better connect with you. Now, confidence is something that is very important. This is one of the second questions I'm going to ask you before the end of the podcast. Confidence is something very important for children. It is very important that they develop it as they grow up, as they grow older, and begin to face the challenges of life. Now, how do you help them in this area? How do you help children to develop confidence?
It's a great question. So yeah, not all children are born confident. I'll just say that right now. If parents, you think your students should be confident, no, it's something that definitely takes time. And so what I do with the students is I actually do a lot of asking them. So for example, maybe they did turn in an assignment on time, and I'll ask them, how do you feel about that? And then they can say, well, I feel really good. I said, great. And I label it. That's confidence. You got it turned in. You feel confident right now because you turned it in. Or even a small task. Did you make your bed today? Yeah, great. Hey, that's success. And that builds confidence. So it's not that I have to cheerlead them all day long. It's not that I have to constantly be telling them what something good is or what something successful is. I help them identify what feels successful and good to you. And when you're in that place, that is confidence. And so helping them understand the definition of confidence with society, but then their definition of their own definition of confidence. So we work on things like gratitude. The way I start my sessions with my parents and my students is, okay, what are 3 things that went well this week? And we help identify. If they can't identify, and this is a joke that I use on all my interviews, so anybody who's watched my interview before, they're going to hear the same joke. They say, I don't know what went well this week. I have no idea. I say, well, toothbrushes are plastic. Did your toothbrush break today? And they're like, no. I said, oh, good. So you didn't get any plastic pieces in your mouth. No. I said, oh, then that means it went well. You've got a great toothbrush. So it's very minor. It's very silly. But the reality is let's identify something that went well. Did you have a pair of pants that you could put on today? Awesome. You didn't go outside naked? Fabulous. Guess what? That's something that went well. So there's silly examples and silly things, but it's about really helping people get more on a very small level rather than thinking that the only thing they can be grateful for or the only thing that went well is the A that they get in school or that their child talked to them today. There's so much more. There's so much more. In fact, one of the things we didn't talk about, Obehi, is that I'm also a singer-songwriter and I suffer from chronic pain. And so a lot of my songs are about soothing from the inside out. And one of my songs is called Ain't No Bad Day for Me. So what I try to encourage everyone to think about and look at is that when you have something that goes wrong in the day, it is normal for people to say, I had a bad day. But the reality is they more likely had a good day with a bad moment or a good day with lots of crappy moments. But if anything, just one thing, a bird flies by, a friend says hello, a butterfly is right there. If anything makes you smile, now it is a good day with maybe some bad things that happened. And so I just like to encourage people to, that's another way to build confidence.
That is interesting. It's always about the perspective at the end of the day, depending on how you look at the issue, though. Yeah, because someone will always see the cup half full, another one see it half empty, but it's the same cup. I didn't
absolutely.
I didn't love that. All right, Misha, you see, we have come to the end of the podcast, but of course, I'm going to ask you a question that's going to have three parts. Now, we have talked about different things on how to follow up the children in their educational career. And this is very important for us as a project and as a community and also as audience. I'm talking of the people that are following up this podcast, in that many of them are parents that of course that understand what we are talking about here, because this is a reality that is played out in the community that we are serving. Now, to conclude this podcast, I want you to share with us what are the three best ways that parents can follow up their children to get a maximum result. That would be the last question, please.
So what are 2 or 3 ways that parents can follow up with their kids to get the best results? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, it goes back to that communication and expectations. So I think that it would be wonderful if parents were willing to approach their child and say, you know what, well, let's just take a situation. Maybe communication hasn't been so good. And a parent can go to their student and say, you know what, I've been communicating very well. I wondered if you'd be willing to take 10 minutes with me and really say 10 minutes, set the timer. 10 minutes with me to talk about how we want our relationship to be, what we want our relationship to look like. And maybe it won't happen all at once, but I would really like to be in a relationship with you, is to invite the student to participate in a conversation, in a dialogue, as opposed to saying, this is how the relationship is going to be, this is what's going to happen, and that's the end of it. That you don't have a choice. We really want the students to have ownership, our children to have ownership in their process, in our process. So that would be one thing. The second thing is, when you communicate with your student, it's not just communicating doesn't mean just talking. Communicating also means listening, and listening to understand, not listening to respond. So if, for example, I go to my son and I say, how are you today? And he says, I'm good. And if I'm already thinking about the next question, I'm not listening to I'm good. But if I'm listening to I'm good, I say, oh, what does good mean? Can you share more with me? And then I'm not waiting for him to say, oh, how are you, Mom? It's not about that. I'm learning to really engage with my child. And so it's really about listening, identifying for understanding, not for a response. So I would say those are 2 really important pieces that a parent can do right now.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. All right, that is where we're going to call the shot today. And for our audience, I really also want to thank all of you that have accompanied us to the end of this podcast. It has been really enriching. Of course, if you are a parent or a would-be parent soon, I believe that you have a lot to benefit from what Michelle has shared with us. that it is very important to follow up our children, but it is also very important that we follow them up in the right way, because sometimes some of these strategies we do not know them, they do not come to us naturally, especially maybe if you are a parent for the first time. So it is very important that we learn this technique, this strategy from people who have been there before. If you have contact with your parent, it can be very easy. Of course, life is a repetition, no? She, of course, will show you the way. But if you don't have the luxury, why don't you can live with some other persons who have had the experience, or maybe even coach, and so that they can help you, because our children are everything. So we need to dedicate all the time in the world to be able to follow them up, because if we mix them up in some places, it becomes very difficult to correct in the future. So for that, I want to thank Michelle again for the time that she have shared with us, and I thank all of you. So that is what we edit today. Talk to you the next time, and bye for now.